Welcome to the City Council meeting for the City of Ferguson for December the 8th. We are going to have our opening ceremony. At this time, I call the meeting to order. Let us stand for a silent prayer. Thank you. The pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United
States of America and to the republic
for which it
stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Pittman, could you please take attendance?
Councilman Fry. Let's make sure. I thought I saw him here. Councilman Fry. He's there.
Here he comes. Where's he going?
I think that was his way of saying he's here.
He's here, okay.
All right, Councilwoman Griffin.
Here.
Councilwoman Burrow.
Here.
Councilwoman Robinette. Councilwoman Robinette. I thought she was here too.
She's signaling.
Oh, okay. I have a lot of issues today. Councilwoman Lipta.
Here.
And Councilman Garrett.
Here.
Okay, a quorum is present. At this time, Councilwoman Heather Robinette, would you please put a motion on the floor to amend the agenda?
I don't think she can unmute.
You can't unmute? Hold on, let me see if I can do it for you. It's not letting me unmute you either.
Oh.
You want to try going out and coming back?
Mayor Jones,
Yes.
while we're waiting on Councilwoman Robinette, I would like to make a request that we add new business back onto the agenda for tonight.
Okay, when she makes the motion to amend the agenda, we can do that at the same time.
Thank you.
Instead of having something separate, okay?
Thank you. Hold on.
Okay, here she comes.
Okay. Has she made it?
I see her still trying to connect. Okay, here
Yeah.
Okay, Linda would like to, in addition to amend the agenda, she would like for you to add that we put new business back on the agenda also. So could you include that in your motion?
It muted you again.
You're muted again. Hold on. Are you trying to unmute? It won't undo it for you? Okay, let's see if I can do it. Mm-mm. Nope.
Okay.
I hear you.
I hear you.
Okay. I think we're good. Okay. So I would like to make a motion that we amend the agenda to allow the auditors to speak after or before the public comments, because I know they have to leave. And that we amend the agenda to include new business as well. So that's the motion I'd like to make.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
I heard Councilman Garrett second. All in favor? Are you ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. The agenda has been amended. At this time, we will have Finance Director Alexa Miller. Will she come and share with us about the report?
Mayor and Council. I just want to remind everybody, every year we are required to do an independent audit. And so we have hired Bot Steele again. Alan Schulte is the auditor that has come and done our audit. And every year we are required to then present what we refer to as a CAFR, which is the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. And this is the audit plus other statistical data that we use within the city. And Alan is here. If you all would be, Octavia, if you would allow him to share his screen, he will share with you some of the highlights from the audit and explain to you kind of some of the issues and or hopefully non-issues that he had during the audit.
All right. Can everybody hear me? Thumbs up. Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for bumping me up to the front. I do have another Zoom meeting right after this, so that helps me out a lot. I appreciate it. So the financial statements that you all received are for the fiscal year, which is July 1, 2019 through June 30, 2020. As Lexi said, you guys, the city does prepare a CAFR, and kind of what that means is you submit your financial statements to the GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officers Association, and several people grade it in essence and basically give you a pass-fail. The city's received the stamp of approval, if you will, for over 25 years. So, that's a good thing. CAFR kind of goes beyond what's basically required by generally accepted accounting principles. So it's kind of a step up, if you will. You get some extra information, the transmittal letter, and the statistical pages, which is the real big additional information that's really helpful. Gives you one of the downsides of governmental financial statements is that they're not comparative. It's just too difficult to try to cram those funds and all those things into a comparative financial statement. So the statistical section gives you some of that comparative information. Several of the schedules actually give you 10 years of information. So, that can be really helpful to kind of see, where you've been and how you've got to where you are. So there's some other sections, management discussion and analysis. The real purpose of that is to try and give you some plain language explanations of what happened to the city during the year. I know Jeff and Lexi, that's kind of, as it says in the title, management's discussion analysis. So Jeff and Lexi put that together. It has a lot of detail in it. So I won't really go through a lot of the numbers. If you read, it starts on page 7, goes to page 12 is kind of where the real good discussion is in there. And it kind of tells you, compares now the one thing, a lot of it is based on the government-wide financial statement. So if you've been sat through my presentation in the past before, the government-wide kind of takes all those individual funds that you have and condenses them into one column, and it takes a little bit more of a long-term view than what the funds do. So you have fixed assets which are depreciated. In the funds, when you buy a fixed asset, it's an expense. You have debt on there, which then when you make a debt payment, a principal payment, it reduces the liability in the government-wide, whereas in the fund statements, it's an expense. So it takes a little bit more of a longer view, and that's kind of what most of the management discussion and analysis focuses on, is the things, but it also talks about the budget and some of the funds too. So that's a great place to look if you really want to see what happened to the city during the year. Okay. The fund statements, like I said, kind of focus on a more of a short-term financial reporting. It's close to cash basis, but not quite cash basis. And again, fixed assets are expenses, principal payments on debt are expenses, things like that. The city has 3 major funds, or I should say 3 of the major funds are the general fund, the parks fund, and the capital improvements fund. So those 3 funds make up about 74% of the city's assets at the end of the year, and they collect about 87% of the revenue. So even though there's a lot of funds, most of the business happens in those 3 funds. The reason we use funds is to kind of show restrictions on assets. So the Parks Fund, for example, that revenue is only available to use in the Parks Department or for parks type, expenditures. Footnotes follow the fund statements, and they just kind of give you a little bit more information on certain things like long-term debt, fixed assets, and the debt section, for example, it tells you what your future principal payments will be, so you can kind of see that forward-looking part there. Supplemental information, see the budgets, some pension information, and I'll talk about a couple of those schedules, and other post-employment benefits, or OPEB as we call it. So for the city, OPEB, or other post-employment benefits, is basically a benefit that allows employees, or retirees, I should say, to purchase insurance through the city, and it results in what we call an implicit subsidy. So what that means is your insurance premiums are higher as a whole because these retirees are on the insurance policy. So even though you don't pay the retirees premium, there's still a little bit of an elevated cost to the city for allowing that to happen. And then, like I said, the last section is the statistical section, and that has some 10-year tables, shows some information there, gives you some information on major taxpayers, tax rates, not only the cities but other taxing districts, the debt of the city, and just general demographic and economic information. So the one page that I was going to kind of talk about was page 54. Let's see if I can share this. Oh, maybe not. Oh, yep, there we go. Where did it go? I don't see it. I'm sorry. Let me try one more time here. There it is. All right, so can everybody see that? All right, if you go, I'll go to page 54. So this schedule shows some information for the pension plan. So eventually this will be 10 years of information. So in that 2020 column, the first highlighted number in that 2020 column is the total pension liability. So that's the actuary's estimate of what all of those future pension benefits will cost. And it comes in at about $27.1 million. And then the next section is the assets set aside to pay those benefits. And that's at about $26 million. Then the net difference is that line that I've highlighted all the way across there, is basically $1.1 million. So, and part of the reason why I kind of wanted to point this out is it's a little counterintuitive, since generally speaking, most places have a net pension liability, so the liability is greater than the assets accumulated. A positive number is actually a net liability. So ideally, you'd want that number to be a negative number, because that means you have more assets than the liability. And you can see most years that's the case for the city. And this year, just markets, returns weren't quite as much as the expected rate of return. And then also I highlighted their change in assumptions. So that bumped up your liability by about $1 million. So really, that's the reason you guys aren't really at break even, is because there were a few assumption changes that took place. One was lowering the expected rate of return. So previously you guys were using 7.5%, now you're using 7.25, just a little bit more of a conservative number. And then everybody this year has been changing mortality tables. So, bumping out that life expectancy a little bit increases that liability. So, so it's kind of the main thing. This is a pretty good table. You can, like I said, you can kind of see you guys have consistently been right, $1 million to the plus, a little bit to the under. That's really great. The feds kind of think that, plans should be above 80% funded, and you guys have been consistently near 100. So that's a really good thing for the city. You should, know that you are in a good position there. And then a couple pages later, this is kind of a similar table for that OPEB that I talked about. Now, the big difference here is you guys, again, don't pay, so there's no assets set aside for that. And you can kind of small relative to what most cities see there. And then just kind of scroll up a little bit to, these are the 10-year tables that I was talking about. So this is all the funds combined, but it's still the fund basis of accounting, and you can kind of see where things have gone, over the last 10 years. So anybody have any questions about the financial statements?
Yes. Okay, so we're still sharing the screen.
Okay, and then I was just going to make...
No, I'm here. So in regards to going back to the pension, so basically what you're saying, if I'm understanding it correctly, is if everybody cashed out this year, we would not have enough to cover it.
Yeah, yes, I guess technically that you could say that.
But also in the reality, it's not going to happen that way.
Right, and because people can't. So this is taking into, account, that the liability increases as people earn the benefit, but they're years and years away from, if it ended today, some of those people wouldn't really be entitled to much of a benefit. And, the people that haven't invested are also included in this number a little bit. So they wouldn't really be entitled to benefits either.
So
I think
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think you guys have a 5-year off the top of my head. I don't remember for sure, but usually it's at least 5 years before you're vested. So, they're still taking, and say you have to work 30 years to get a benefit, they're still taking 1/30 of that projected benefit every year and putting that in the liability, even though, some people won't stick around for that 5 years. And then you actually have if you have assets set aside for them, then you would have assets extra.
So the reason I asked this is because I've had the question.
And this jumps around.
I'm sorry. The reason I asked the question is because I've had the conversation brought to me by retired employees of Ferguson. And so, if in the situation that you're discussing, the what ifs, for lack of, that's how I want to describe them, the what ifs. In the what ifs, would your scenario be that the people who are currently already collecting their pension, would they be seniority over? Would it go with them first and then go to the guy who's still in employment that has 30 years and down the chain, so to speak, down the ladder? Would that be how it works?
To be honest with you, that would probably be more of a legal type thing.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that's fine.
I don't know. I can tell you that I see lots of these where the funding percentage is 80-75%. If you're over 95% funded, that's probably one of the last things you would really need to worry about.
Okay, I just need to hear you say that. So thank you very much. Because the incidentals, so to speak, is that none of this would happen all at the same time. That you have the 5-year, possibly more, before you're vested, and they also the fact that as we progress into the following years and we improve and we get past this COVID pandemic, everything's going to start improving. Your investments, all that's going to see. So we're going to see these things heal themselves to some degree.
Yeah, if you look at that last line there on this page 54, it shows you what the rate of returns were on your investments. So you can kind of see, a couple years over the 7.25, a few years under. I would say the market is fairly high right now. Now, again, keep in mind this is June 30, not December. So, quite possibly the fiduciary net position might be $2 million higher than what it is at June 30. That only takes a 10% return. And at the same time, if the market crashes by 30%, then these numbers will look ugly really fast. But kind of the same thing that they preach when you look at your 401k or whatever, we're talking a long time horizon. So even more so than your 401k, because you have a pool of people, so you have the ability to recover from down markets and things like that. So it's the nature of the beast that this number does bounce around a lot. But I would take some solace in the fact that, out of those 10 years, or out of those 7 years, 5 of them, the assets were more than the liabilities. That's really good.
Any other questions?
And then if you would like, I can hit on the management report just real quick. There's about a minute discussion for that. And basically it just says, the financial statements are management's responsibility. We're issuing an opinion on whether they're in accordance with GAAP. Statements include estimates, the pension being a big one, depreciation, things like that. So, we're making our best guess on some of these things. So, there's a lot of unknowns that go into that. There were a couple of recommendations last year. Most have been addressed. We talked about some of the grant submitted as quickly as it probably should have. So there was some delays in getting your money. This year it seemed like it was much more timely. Due to froms between the various funds, we recommended, cleaning those up, like truing them up. That's probably a better word. I don't want to say they're not accurate. They're just, it makes it a little hard to tell how much cash a fund has if the due froms get really large, because you have to factor those in too. So that's happening more consistently. Halls Ferry TIF was closed in September. That had taken a while to get closed. And kind of the last thing that maybe still could use a little addressing would be just a little more consistent analysis of some of the balance sheet accounts. We're not talking lots of big numbers or anything, but just a consistent looking at those accounts and making sure that if you're owed money, you're getting paid. If you owe somebody else money, that money is getting forwarded, things like that. The city does a good job of looking at the budget and comparing that information and being on top of that. But sometimes the balance sheet gets a little neglected because people don't care about that as much. So that's basically what we had there. So any questions?
I have a question. How often do you recommend taking a look at that balance sheet and actually balancing it out on a periodic basis?
Ideally we'd like to see it happen every month, but if it's quarterly, a lot of it doesn't change that rapidly. Quarterly is probably enough. And for sure, and maybe it's a quicker look on a monthly basis, a little more in depth on a quarterly, and then once a year, look at it, in a little more detail kind of thing. And it's really a matter of picking a process and then just following the process.
Okay, Lexi, anything else?
No, that was all I had in regards to the audit.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Go back to our regular screen.
Are you able to unshare my screen? I can't figure out how to do it.
No, it's not letting me unshare your screen.
Maybe if I just, oh, that didn't get rid of me.
Alan, if you go up to the top, it should have a thing and I think up at the top of the screen, it should say you are sharing your screen. I think that's where you can stop it, at the top of the screen.
Oh, let's try this.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Sorry.
Thank you. No problem.
Bye.
At this time, yeah, thank you very much. At this time, we'll have our public comments. The comments were accepted by email prior to the meeting by Monday, December the 7th at 5:00 p.m. Clerk Pittman, do we have any comments, and would you please read them?
I actually have 7 in total. I've received another one, but I have 5 that I'm going to read today. 2 were received after the deadline. But if there's no objections, I'll still note them for the record, so that way we'll know that they were received, but I won't go through them today.
Okay.
So the first one I have is from Erica Brooks, and it says, Dear our Ferguson 2040 Commission, my name is Ms. Erica M. Brooks, and I am a Ferguson resident, tax-paying registered voter, and previously a bus rider on Bi-State Development Agency's Metro bus route number 79 for more than 3 years, along with my son, Gabriel Cornelius. We were the grassroots organizers whom retained accessibility to safe, affordable, and convenient public transportation, which is known as bus routes number 79 and 79X in 2019. It was in March 2019 that Bi-State Development Agency announced by way of my Facebook that they were on course to discontinuing or revoking access to bus route number 79. As a citizen of Ferguson, I wasn't aware of this Metro Reimagined project, which was being administered by Bi-State. Once this notification came across my phone, we began a year-long volunteer campaign to make sure all of our tax-paying Ferguson residents and all of the daily commuter had access to public transportation throughout Ferguson, Missouri, and the St. Louis region. We successfully retained bus route number 79 and 79X after conducting a petition I originated and orchestrated, conducting the Ferguson Public Transportation Town Hall Forum and Metro Reimagined Survey, which voiced the opinion of our community, a business survey I initiated to demonstrate the negative economic impact that the city of Ferguson, as well as its residents and consumers. In addition, we met with various partners, businesses, agencies, government officials, federal, state, and local media outlets, etc., to make sure our voices, the citizens of Ferguson, were emphasized. Also, we demonstrated the urgency to retain access to affordable, safe, convenient public transportation, which was and still is the main mobile lifeline to our socioeconomic stability in our homes, our community of Ferguson, Missouri, and in the St. Louis region. Our Ferguson 2040 Commission, I'm writing to inform you that as I read your segment on transportation and mobility plan, your description of the main sources of public transportation in this segment is incorrect. You mentioned bus routes number 70, number 61, and number 74 as the main bus routes in Ferguson, Missouri. However, bus routes number 79, number 61, and number 74 are the sources of publication, or the main sources of public transportation in Ferguson, Missouri. This is reflected in the images on page 67 by showing the course of bus route number 79 on the Metro Reimagined bus route. As a result, your description of the main sources of public transportation, bus route number 70, number 61, and number 74 should be corrected to replace it with bus routes number 79, number 61, and number 74 in your draft copy. It was a volunteer labor submission in which we, my son, Gabriel Q. Cornelius, and I, Erica M. Brooks, the grassroots organizers, were honored to be able to take up the baton of justice to retain our public transportation to make sure that all of the residents, consumers, and daily commuters retain access to public transportation. So it is only befitting that the correct information is inserted in this, our Ferguson 2040 plan. If you have any questions and or concerns, I can be reached, and she lists her telephone number and email address. Thank you for your time. I look forward to your response. The second one is Diane Bassett. I live in the Old Ferguson West area. It seems lately there are gunshots every day. They happen during the daylight hours and at night. Just this past Monday around 3 p.m., there were multiple shots fired. I believe someone said this was up by Airport and Dade, approximately 50 shots. There was a time not too long ago that you never heard gunshots. Now it's so bad. I even tell there are multiple guns fired by the different sounds the guns make. I hesitate to write this email because I'm afraid of what the answer will be, that the police are short-staffed and don't have the officers to try to be proactive and do something about this. But does the city do nothing until someone gets shot inside their own home? If our police department is short-staffed, can we not get assistance for other areas to try and stop this? Perhaps county PD or Fed? Open for any ideas right now. I know people that live in other areas of North County, Florissant, Hazelwood, and St. Louis County, and they do not have gunshots going off like this. Would appreciate hearing some ideas from the mayor and council. Thank you. Next, I have Annette Jenkins. To Mayor Jones, Jeffrey Bloom, Chief Armstrong, and the council. Recently, I have become very concerned due to the number of police who has left the Ferguson Police Department. While I still believe in the thorough vetting, I think they should be hiring. Chief Armstrong must find ways to retain police and increase our numbers. It is my understanding when Chief Moss, Assistant Chief McCall were in charge, we had 47 officers. I remember very clearly that the former Mayor James Knoll would offer questions about Chief Moss about getting to 52 officers. Chief Moss would respond that again it says biting, but I think it's hiring process would take time. It has been brought to my attention that our police department may be dissolved and we may come under county police. I am totally against losing our own police department. As a concerned citizen, and there are many of us concerned, we need Chief Armstrong and Jeffrey Bloom to explain why we are in this position and what are the plans moving forward. Sincerely, Elder Annette Jenkins. Okay. The next one is from Alan Mueller. Dear, hold on one second, I'm sorry. Hello? Okay. From Alan Miller. Dear City Council members, the council has held special meetings on the 22nd of October and 12th of November to discuss a variety of communication and procedural issues. The meetings are addressing some very significant issues that truly need solutions. I appreciate both the content and tone of these two meetings. I especially appreciate the effort of Councilmember Garrett in this process. He has identified significant issues that truly need to be addressed while also offering constructive and realistic solutions. I also appreciate Mr. Garrett's calm, collegial demeanor while advancing these issues and helping direct the conversation to be quite productive. The issues being discussed have perennially plagued the council and do not lend themselves to easy solutions. Project management and document management software platforms are notoriously associated with the concept of garbage in, garbage out. They are only as effective and as reliable as the people who are using these systems. The calendars and data repositories will need daily updating by virtually every city employee to be effective. It is therefore imperative that city personnel in all departments are fully committed to using these systems. These programs also require access by a variety of non-city employees, complicating the granting of site permissions. In the past week, we have had a good example of the need for a coordinated scheduling system and the complexities involved with setting up, maintaining, and accessing the system. 2 important meetings were scheduled for the same time on Thursday evening. Information about the Old Ferguson East Historical Survey meeting appears to have been added only recently, making longer-term planning impossible. However, even if the notice had been posted earlier, the consent decree monitor would not have had access to the city site to post their meeting announcement. The conflicting schedules have been resolved, but are indicative of the urgency needed for a workplace solution to scheduling events. Timely scheduling of all events and coordination between departments and outside groups can become complicated and time-consuming. Sufficient time needs to be provided to ensure that all system users can keep the system updated and ensure everyone's commitment to updating and maintaining the information. Although there are a lot of issues yet to work out, The concerns I expressed above indicate why the system is so badly needed. I applaud the council's efforts to find solutions to our city's communication and procedural issues. If properly put in place and executed, the initiative should greatly help streamline procedures and keep everyone informed to the benefit of both the city officials and residents. Shirley Emerson, congratulations to our Mayor Ella Jones for being selected as the commencement speaker for 2020 fall commencement of the entire University of Missouri system. Again, like I said, I have two other comments that were submitted after the deadline, and there was another from Alan Miller, and then also one from, looks like Claude Mitchum, Laverne Mitchum, but that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Staff have heard the comments of the people, and they will continue to work on the comments. The next order of business is our manager report, interim city manager Jeffrey Bloom.
All right, thank you very much, Mayor, Mayor and Council. We have two things on the schedule for tonight. One is Chief Armstrong and also Chief Hampton. And I'll ask Chief Armstrong to begin with his community policing update.
Thank you, Mr. Bloom. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just had a few things that I wanted to share with you all this evening, and wanted to kind of provide some updates and some highlights of some of the things that we've had going on just over the last couple of weeks, and how, you know, even going off of the comments that were read in the public comments, how some of these things are kind of, you know, intertwined and play a role in not just what's going on with Ferguson, but what we're seeing in the area. And so one of the big things are the stolen vehicles. And I've talked about this previously, and that's one of the biggest things that we're seeing continue to escalate here, not just in Ferguson, but in North County and the county as a whole. And so one of the things that contributes to, you know, a lot of the complaints that we're seeing, that we're getting from people related to the driving that they're seeing. So Elizabeth Drive is a good one. You know, when people complaining about cars that are speeding down Elizabeth Drive at the 60, 70, 80 miles per hour, cars that are going illegally passing other cars. And what we're finding is not all of these vehicles, but a lot of these vehicles are associated to the stolen vehicle, you know, issue or problem that we're seeing and that we're dealing with. And these vehicles, even, you know, when we've had chances to get behind them and try to stop them, they're taking off and they're fleeing from us and they're not stopping. And these aren't vehicles that, you know, that we would chase. And so that's, you know, that's one of the things that's contributing, you know, to one problem that's, you know, kind of spiraling into some of the other problems and additional issues, you know, that we're seeing. And so, you know, some examples of what we, you know, are dealing with and what we're seeing, and how, you know, it's tying into just overall the immediate area. Just in the last couple of weeks, there was a stolen vehicle out of Hazelwood that came in here to the city, driving crazy, and crashed into a tree in a residential neighborhood. Luckily, we were able to get there quick and canvass the area, and we were able to take suspects into custody related to that. And so we had a stolen vehicle, and we also recovered guns from that incident. Just this morning, at the Quick Trip on West Florissant Road, 2 individuals were trying to steal a vehicle. Officers were in the area quick, did a canvass. We were able to take those 2 suspects into custody. Once again, guns were recovered from them individuals as well. We had an incident here where a vehicle was stolen by force, carjacking here in Ferguson. And once again, crazy driving with that stolen vehicle. That vehicle crashed in Dalewood. And so Dalewood, you know, handled the accident scene, not knowing that, you know, it had just been involved, or had just been stolen. And so that was information that we got after the fact. And so now we're working, and we have those suspects identified to clear up those cases. And so, you know, a large part of what we're seeing is it's not just related to Ferguson. I'm sure many of you saw the robbery that just happened in Jennings at the O'Reillys, and when they were fleeing and they crashed into the funeral procession. Well, in looking at that and what happened over in Jennings, one of the individuals that was arrested in that, had some ties to some of the stuff that we've been seeing, we've been dealing with here, in Ferguson. And so it's just, trying to make sure we have that communication going with all our surrounding partners and other agencies, and that we're sharing information to try to, get a better handle. I mentioned before, the prosecuting attorney's office is starting up kind of like a task force, so to speak, because of the stolen vehicle problem we're seeing is manifested in so many other things. And so I recently had a conversation with them, and in the next couple of weeks, we'll be getting together to meet to see, what has been going on and what's been done with that, and how we can build up on it. One of the things that was mentioned in the public comment, was, reaching out for assistance and partnering. And so, like, another thing, just over the last couple of weeks, we had a very significant drug bust here in the city, with not just a large amount of drugs, but also guns recovered at that scene also. And just the amount of drugs that we recovered, we contacted the DEA, and we're working with them on that case to see if maybe there's a federal nexus that they would take that case, and if there's any additional, work to be done in investigation that the DEA can assist us with that case. And so, yes, we're understaffed, and we're overworked right now, but we are taking the concerns serious, and we are trying to address the issues that are coming up. With the shooting and the gunshots that the one resident mentioned. One of the things that we're hoping that will assist us, we're getting close to deploying the shot spotter technology. And so, that will help us, pinpoint more accurately where these shots are being fired from, and give us instant notification of when these things, when the shots are going off. That will help our response and help us get a quicker response to try to get a better handle on that part of things. One of the things that we definitely did a good job with, Thanksgiving holidays is normally, big shopping holidays, and we normally see a big uptick in people breaking into cars and some of our big shopping center parking lots, Walmart, Sam's Club. And so that was one of the areas that we did target, over the holiday period to, try to keep our numbers down with people being victimized in that. And we did a very good job with that, and we didn't see the number of car break-ins in those areas that we would typically see. And so, that's just some of the stuff that we have going on, and we're very busy, the high call volume that we're dealing with, and with the staff, and where we're at right now, still trying to address, the issues and the concerns that's going on. And just to add one last note, about the hiring process, and some of the issues and concerns, challenges really, that we've been facing, is not necessarily for a lack of people applying, but it's our vetting process, and we are held to a higher standard than most other departments, and we can't take any shortcuts when it comes to our hiring process, and unfortunately, we may have somebody that we spent months going through the hiring process, and when we get to the end and some of the last testing that they do, if some red flags pop up, where some places may be able to overlook those things and still hire that person, we don't have the luxury of doing that. And that's even just today, I got a notification on something that may impact somebody that we spent months going through the process, that we may not be able to hire them and stuff. And so that's not the news that I want to share, but that's just the reality. But that's not something that we have the luxury of being able to take a shortcut with. And so, we're working hard, we're working diligently, and trying to beef up our numbers and fill these openings, that we do have. The academy class is starting in January, and we'll have several individuals that we'll be putting in the academy class, on top of still continuing to recruit and to recruit certified officers to join our staffing as well. But that's all I have. If there are any questions for me.
So I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You were talking, we've talked, I brought it to you before, how concerned I am about everything that's going on. So you're well aware of my concern. But what I'm also hearing, when you monitor the different Facebook pages that are that Ferguson residents are communicating with one another on, the areas that I'm hearing the most concern about are the Dade, Georgia, Tiffin suburban airport. I mean, that's a whole lot of space there, those areas. That's a ton of space. So it's no one end or not, but what they are constantly saying, our citizens are constantly concerned about, is these gun battles. I mean, like, I can sit on my back porch, and that's where I sit out at night by myself to get some quiet time, and it's not quiet. I hear gun battles constantly. And I agree with the comment that you can actually hear a variety of guns. We're getting pretty good at knowing the difference, which is not something I'm real proud to know. But that's, what are we doing? And there's even been comments that there's some conflict going on between two groups of people in those neighborhoods that are going after each other. So the comment was made from one of the public, I think it was Miss Bassett, said, is it going to take somebody getting killed in their own home before we pay attention to this? Well, sadly, that's already happened in our community. If people remember correctly, we had a beautiful little 6-year-old girl who was killed in her mom's bedroom over in the Canfield neighborhood by a drive-by. So it's already happened. So I understand everything you're saying, but I need you to tell me as a citizen, as a council member, I need you to tell the rest of us, are these areas that you are paying attention to? Are you showing some urgency to these areas? Because people really need to hear some hope.
Yes, ma'am, we are. And so a couple of things really contribute to, when we have one of these incidents happen. And so, number one is, the people that were in the area, whether they were involved or whether they were witnesses, is their willingness and to talk to us or to speak to us. And so, one of the things that is very consistent is if we have two groups that are at odds with each other for whatever reason, and there are multiple things that they could be at odds with each other over, and if somebody takes some action against one group, what we consistently see is when we're there and we're trying to investigate what happened, is they often don't want to talk to us, or they're not going to talk to us. And a lot of people have the mentality of, we're not going to have the police involved in this. We're going to deal with it ourselves, or we're going to handle it ourselves. And so, when we have these issues or some of these incidents play out, there's no information that is shared with us from individuals that were either victims of what happened or witnesses, that were of happened. And so we don't get a lot of assistance there. And so one of the things that we, try to rely on is what evidence we could gather at the scene. So one of the recent ones that we had, and I went out to this scene, and so the vehicle that was involved with it, people get to shooting at each other, and so they crash the vehicle, then they leave the vehicle, they take off running. The vehicle is stolen. Going back to, what I was speaking of earlier is, they often use stolen vehicles when they go out and do these things because they can just leave it there, and there's nothing to tie it back to who, who was in the vehicle. And so now we're getting into the investigation part of things, and that takes, a lot of time. We have to process the vehicle, seeing if we can recover any fingerprints or any shell casings. Now, all the shell casings that we take and that we recover, there is a system called NIBIN. And so the best way I can describe it, it's almost like the fingerprint system. And so bullets and casings, they have a unique signature and a unique marking on them when they're fired from a gun. And so, but we don't have a NIBIN system. We don't have that kind of technology. So there's one place in the county, St. Louis County, has that system. But one of the things that, we all fall prey to is everybody in the county is using that one system. And so we can collect some shell casings today, but, if it's involved in a homicide, then that jumps to the front of the line, so to speak. And so if we have an incident where we just recover some shell casings, but nobody was hurt or anything like that, then it's just going to go into the regular line. And so we do all of this stuff in investigating these things and trying to find out who was involved and whatnot. It's just the back end of investigations takes is a lot lengthier process, unfortunately, and it's even more lengthier when you don't have a lot of people doing it, and when you have other issues come up where people do get hurt and harmed. Then that jumps to the front of our priority list, like the homicide that we had down in Canfield. And so, it's just one of those things where, we have to prioritize, what we're doing and how we're spending our time. And sometimes it takes us a lot longer than we want it to take for us to truly be able to investigate, some of these issues on the back end.
Well, we don't solve these things in 30 minutes like SBU or whatever those TV shows are. But and then that process that you were discussing, the knifer, I think is what you called it, that identifies the shell casings and things like that. I'm sure it's ridiculously expensive, but is that beyond even comprehension for Ferguson? Because could that be a moneymaker for us in the future where other people come to our community to get that done versus everybody going to county?
I don't have an answer for that.
Something to chew on.
I would have to look into that. But there's only two that I'm familiar with, and St. Louis County has one. In St. Louis City, would have one also. But you normally only find them at the very large departments.
My final thing, you mentioned the shot spotter being able to assist you soon. Can you give us an idea of, once again, I know we've talked about it before, but just refresh our memories, exactly, is that shot spotter going to cover some of these areas of concern, and how soon are we going to see that working?
Yes, it is going to cover, some of the areas of concern. And they were hopeful to try to get it done by the end of the year, but COVID has hampered that, and with different restrictions going in and entities being restricted from travel and stuff. And so we're probably looking at January before, it'll be launched and we'll start using it.
Okay, thank you.
While we're still on that topic, have there been success models built out, since we do have some extra time before that's installed, to see the return on investment that we would possibly get from developing that further? On paper, it does seem like a very good solution if we were able to bulk it up to cover the entirety of the city to kind of offset our staffing issues. But if we don't have a transparent way of saying like, yes, this is working, this is kind of like, this is doing the job of like 5 or 6 officers, so we're able to operate at a lower, like, is any of that built out ahead of time so we can backdate future results against it?
It's not built out for us.
Okay.
And so, they have plenty of examples that they can share from other cities and what happened with it. And so for us, kind of when we went through the presentation, with them, that's where we were really looking at that 3-month mark. So we can look at it and see, what kind of an impact it was having, compared to what our numbers were looking like and what our response looked like to it.
Yeah, because that would be, I think, a huge help to morale, is if we have an answer and saying, yes, we are detecting these shots, they're being addressed with our limited staff in a better and more effective way. At the end of the day, we can ramp up this program if it's working. And we need to decide internally, and I'm saying that, and I'm not dictating what you should do, but it would help us council to approve, but building that out, if ahead of time you're saying, if it does this, it's working. If it's not doing this, then we need to find a different solution.
Okay, and so one thing, Councilman, that would help me to be able to get that information for you, if the council wanted to just kind of email me what you wanted to see and what you were looking for, and I can go ahead and get with the reps that we're working with. And so, they could get started on pulling some of that information so we could have it available.
Actually, Chief Armstrong, we already requested that. We requested it back when they made their presentation, and I know I specifically said it myself, and Fran's nodding her head because she and I both agreed. We wanted a baseline study from this company so that we had something to have a comparative statistical information on once our free 3 months was over with.
Well, and so that's from what I recall from when we did the presentation. So we have it for 6 months is
Okay.
the trial period. And so my takeaway from that meeting is you all wanted to see the information at 3 months at the midway point to evaluate what we were looking like in the trial period.
No, I mean, that's lovely, but I think you got to have a baseline that starts from day one. Then you have the 3 months to see where it's going. And then you have the 6 months to see what's accomplished. I mean, if we've got time waiting on our hands before they can install it in January, I agree with Councilman Garrett that maybe we ask them to get that baseline study started.
Oh, and it might be, I just want to be clear on what I'm requesting
Sure.
for personally, and it might be outside of that. Staff costs the city X amount, and we're always going to have that issue, especially with funds as they are and going into an uncertain future. If we can determine X amount of staff we have and we're operating at a better number, like we're detecting X percent over our normal detection, or we're getting actual identifying information on criminal activity over the normal. I don't think that's something that we should be able to leverage the database that we have already that's being built out on our site, and then just comparing that at the 3 month, 6 month, and whatever, and have a financial number benefit that we have to assign to that. So like hours of staff time equals X, just given like health insurance benefits, those things, time of training, all of those. Because ideally we have less officers that are working more effectively and more safely. So there's a better ROI with technology rather than just getting in a mass of people that have risk involved.
Okay, I understood part of that. Some of that was way over my head.
I rambled a little bit. I apologize.
I'm sure, Stephen, you can formulate an email with a request that can be consumed.
Right. Right.
I do.
Go ahead.
I have a
Go ahead.
question. So Linda had brought up an area that's actually Ward 2, which we have heard, and I've heard complaints from several folks in our neighborhood that Tiffin, Georgia, Dade, Harvey, Suburban, South Marguerite. I mean, those areas we're hearing a lot of gunshots. And, I've had neighbors who, like a couple who has a new baby, and they're like, these shots, like, what's the risk of, it coming down on our house? What can we do? What should we do? And I said, call them in. When you hear the shots, call them in so that you guys can, figure out based on who calls in. But I guess the question is, what can we do as citizens who hear these, and especially since everybody's home now, we just hear them, all day long now. What should we be doing, and what can we tell our residents to how to handle when they hear the shots fired?
Well, the number one thing and our number one challenge is pinpointing exactly where it's coming from. And so that's one of the things that, we're hopeful that this technology will really help us out with.
Well, and I will say that ShotSpotter is not covering this area. So the trial is not covering the area that I'm talking about. Okay. We are outside of that area.
Right.
Gotcha. And so
go ahead. I don't want to cut anybody off. Go ahead and please respond to Heather, because she had a concern.
Yeah, so like I said, the number one thing is really trying to pinpoint, where the shots are coming from. And so even the officers, as they're out patrolling, they hear shots, go off. Right. And so we're going to a general area, but that's, if there's nothing that sticks out to us in that general area, we're back to looking for a needle in a haystack, right. so to speak. And so, the more people that we have, the closer, to the incident, that can more pinpoint, where it's coming from, will help us out tremendously in trying to go there and talk with the individuals involved. Now, one of the challenges, say if somebody, even if your neighbor, if your neighbor goes in the backyard and shoots a gun off, and so you hear it right next door, and you can tell us 100% those shots came from my next door neighbor's house. I mean, we would go talk to the next door neighbor. But it's one of those things, if there are 2 and 3 and 4 people that live in that house, okay, we can't put that weapon in somebody's hand, so to speak. And unless, you know, somebody is just being 100% honest and open with us and telling us that they did it, you know, as far as us being able to bring criminal charges against somebody, you know, it's difficult. And so those are some of the challenges, you know, that exist with it. But, you know, the more and the better that we can pinpoint, you know, where things are coming from and lock down, you know, addresses that, you know, we know, you know, people are conducting this. And if we're able to find shell casings at those locations and tie it, you know, to it, then, you know, that helps us kind of build cases, you know, against, you know, residents to look and see. And so one of the things that I've, you know, tried to do some research on to see, you know, if any other cities out there have an ordinance that ties to the actual house itself, as opposed to having to be tied to a person. And so, you know, I know some cities have an ordinance that's titled disorderly house. And so if it's a house, you know, that the police are called to, you know, over and over again for, you know, various amounts of reasons, you know, it can reach a threshold to where the house can be, you know, cited and brought into court to kind of attest for the activity that's going on at the house. I haven't been able to find anything in my research that was directly associated with, you know, gunshots, and if anybody has adopted, you know, any kind of provision like that in an ordinance like that, to where, you know, it would give us a little bit, you know, a little bit more recourse if we were able to identify a pattern, you know, at a house where we may not be able to put it in somebody's hand and say, okay, this exact person is who is doing it. But, you know, could it be something that, you know, the property owner or the homeowner or whoever, you know, put a little bit more responsibility on those individuals for the actions that's going on at the residence.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So I did want to respond. I don't want to make an argument out of this space, because that's not what it's supposed to be. But I did want to at least respond to some of the concerns or questions that Mr. Garrett brought up in regards to the data about ShotSpotter. I don't know if you were watching the Zoom prior to actually being seated, but we had talked about this, and actually I was able to find several articles, several surveys and things of that nature to support the fact that as far as information goes with ShotSpotter, they've had it in the city for a while. They've had it in several places around this region. And in terms of the data collection, who owns the data, those things that I know you are very concerned about, there's a big question mark when it comes to that. And there are several articles available to provide that information to us, which I've shared, and I'll be happy to share it with you. I've shared it with the community. I've shared it with the council as well, so that we are making an informed decision in terms of how much it's going to cost us to use equipment that has done several trials and several surveys in several places around the country and has found to be ineffective in terms of actually addressing root causes of crime. So that's something that I definitely wanted to talk about. Also, in terms of the question about who it is that can actually come in and respond to our calls for service, this was really like responding to one of the concerns that one of the residents had during the public comment section. That's also something that we're in the process of getting clarified, because we have something set up within the consent decree that talks about code 1000s and when would be a specific, you know, a time when we would have another police department come into our city, but it does not give an explanation or allow for, let me just say, you know, the usage of that on a regular call for service call, just a regular officer that responds to the call. And my concern is that when we start talking about bringing other municipalities who our chief of police has no accountability or no jurisdiction to be like, hey, you know, these type of activities, your officer engaged with a resident within our ward or our city in an inappropriate manner, our chief of police would have absolutely no resolve whatsoever to be able to apply any type of disciplinary actions for that officer. And to me, I feel like that goes against the whole spirit of the consent decree in the first place, is that we want officers in our area that are trained, just like Chief Armstrong said, you know, the type of scrutiny that our officers have to go through just to be hired for the city of Ferguson is something that another officer in another police department will not have. They won't have the same type of training that we will, because we are required to have additional training. And so my concern is always for the residents. It's also for the city as well, because you know, with us having this federal consent decree in place, if we are to approve for any municipalities outside the city of Ferguson to come in and engage, if something was to happen to any one of our residents, we will be giving approval for this department to do that. And then there will be problems with the consent decree. So we definitely need to get that clarified in terms of that for the interest of the city as well as our residents. But yeah, I definitely wanted to touch on those few little things. And then also to ask Chief Armstrong, where are you at in regards to checking with the Brown School of Social Work and actually getting some social workers in here to address some of the root causes and help replace the officers that we don't have right now, and be able to address some of the needs in the community as well to really affect some change.
Okay.
At this
First,
point,
okay. All right.
okay, at this point, talking to Professor Kirkland and Chancellor Mary, the school is doing virtual. And at this point, they have not identified anyone to become an intern or practicum here from WashU. They have to wait until after January to see how COVID-19 is coming before they allow any kids on campus and start practicums. So I've been in conversation with them Monday. But we do have an intern from Harry Stowe that's working with Chief Armstrong.
Yes, ma'am. And I just wanted to comment on the outside agencies coming in to help. And so, Councilwoman, the one incident that you brought up and that you wanted me to look into, and so I did look into that, where some Calvin Park officers did respond here. And so what happened on that incident, and actually I pulled up the 911 call so I could hear exactly what the resident called in and said to us. And that resident called 911 and said that there were 50 people outside her house coming to do her and her family harm, and that at least one person had already displayed a gun in that incident. And at that time, when that call came in, all of our officers, all the Ferguson officers, were tied up on other calls. And our dispatchers could see that Calvin and Park officers were not on calls. And so we asked them to go in there to help, because that person needed assistance and emergency assistance right then and there because of what they called in and what they told us on the phone. And so, and you're correct. And the consent decree and the verbiage in the consent decree, you know, talks more specifically about Code 1000 type incidents and what that looks like for the city. And it doesn't necessarily specifically address, you know, issues like this related to that. And so that's one of the things that, you know, we've started the conversation, you know, with the DOJ, with the monitoring team, to make sure, you know, we cover all of that stuff, because what's most important to me are the people in this city, in this community. If somebody needs help, I don't want a piece of paper to be a hindrance to them getting help. And so that's one of the things that we make sure we have to do a good job and find the balance that we need to find and ensuring that when people here need help, we're able to get them the help that they need. And we're not restricted. And because if somebody calls us and say, I need help, I'm never going to be okay with somebody on the phone telling them, well, I can't send anybody to come help you because of what a piece of paper says. And so I will never, allow that to be the single thing to stop us from getting people help when they need help. And so that is something, that we are in communication with the DOJ and with the monitoring team about. And looking at the consent decree and seeing the verbiage in it, exactly what it applies to, and what's the best, course of action for us moving forward to make sure that we have that balance of the city being protected, and the interests of the city, being covered, and what's going on here, and also the safety of the community, and people getting the help that they need when they need it. And for us, also doing the same.
Any other questions for Chief Armstrong? No? All right, thank you very much, Chief. Chief Hampton, please.
Thank you, Jeff, Mayor, Council. I'll kind of keep it brief. I have 4 little subjects to talk to you about. One will be our employee workforce, our numbers in Ferguson, the vaccine, and then the fire department itself. So right now, I work with Vita, our HR director, and our numbers today are, we have 3 current confirmed cases of COVID, and we have 3 employees that are in quarantine. So all in all, we're doing pretty good. On our numbers in the city of Ferguson, in November, the early part of November 13th, we had 131. Right before Thanksgiving, we started creeping up to about 187. Today, well, actually, after Thanksgiving, I think on the 27th, our numbers were 242 locations. Right now, we're kind of leveling off. We're right around the range of the 250, 255, 260 area. It doesn't seem like it's taking that big jump anymore right now. But in the city of Ferguson, since March, we've had over 840 locations with positive COVID. So, and then getting on to the vaccine. I know everybody's excited that it's coming, and we should have some in Missouri at the beginning of, or late part of December, maybe early part of January. With this current vaccine, it'll be administered in 2 parts. With each vaccine, there's different vaccines, and each vaccine, it will be 2 parts, and the time between each shot or each dose will depend upon which type of vaccine you get. Also, the length of the vaccine is also not known at this time. Since we've only had COVID since March, and that's 9 months, we really don't know how long this vaccine will work. And that will be something to see in the future, because really we haven't really had that amount of time to make sure that it's going to work very long. So, and then there's the question is, when will I get it, and things like that. So it's going to be done in 3 tiers. The first tier is going to be the frontline health workers, which is your doctors and nurses, and the nursing home residents, and the employees of the nursing home. The second tier will be the essential workers, the first responders, the administration staff of the hospital, doctor's offices, and people with medical conditions and older adults. The third tier will be like city staff, more essential workers that do not fall into the first responder area, such as your grocery store and some government officials and pharmacists. But as it comes down, the kids under 18 will not be given vaccines unless they have a health condition. There's just no data out there right now to support giving them the vaccine until we get more control of the more of the adults. Also in the fire department, right now we're running about 4,100 calls, which makes us probably one of the busiest engine houses in the North County area. Our fires are up, everybody's at home, so we're getting a lot more EMS calls, and we're getting the fires are, people are using their stoves, people are using their fireplaces a little bit more, so we're getting those fires. And this week, I just want to also say, Saturday, Sunday and Tuesday. I think we'll get with the Parks Department, but we're bringing Santa around the town. So that's pretty much all I have, and I'm open for any question.
Does Santa know you're doing that?
Yes, it does. Dave Musgrave and Caitlin, they know the route. I don't know the route as of today, but once we get the route, I'm sure they'll post it.
Okay.
So,
Chief Hampton, I had a question. This is Fran. You were talking about possibly getting them. From what I understood, like this vaccine, I mean, and I'm not even going to speak on my personal opinion on it. Not right now,
right.
but I will if I have to, especially when it's mandated. If it should ever be mandated. But my question had to do about, we're not going to be having this vaccine in the city, right? Because from what I understood, like it had to be under a certain temperature even as it traveled, correct? So
yeah, 2 of them have that temperature, but 1 does not have the temperature. There's 3 of them out there right now. One, I don't know the name of the company that makes
AstraZeneca.
They don't have to have the temperature that the other 2 have. But the hospital is already gearing up to have that refrigeration available. And so I know it's going to be a strict travel point to point. So it's going to be accounted for, the temperatures and everything, until it gets to the destination at the hospitals. And my understanding, it's only going to go to the hospitals to be administered because they're going to have the proper equipment.
okay.
But according to the tiers, those of us who are just regular old citizens, we won't see this till the very end. We're the last ones on the list. So, suck it up, Buttercup.
Well, I mean, that may be March, April, May of this year. I mean, it may not be that far off. It all depends on how fast they can keep the vaccines being produced and seeing that they're working.
Well, and I also would say that I think, on a serious note, I think the one that does not require refrigeration is actually produced in St. Louis. I think that's the Pfizer.
That's nice. So, that's all I have.
Any other questions for Chief Hampton?
Jeff, this is Tony. I don't have a question for Chief Hampton, but I think I'm going to have a question for you, and it might have to have Chief Jason to help you out with it. But last night at our CRB meeting, I was approached by the board there to come to the council and talk about a situation with the MOU. And I'll just read it to you what we have. It says, we want to be assured that the internal change that made between the Ferguson Police Department and the HR in organizing police panels will not affect what has been negotiated in the memorandum of understanding between the FPD and the FCRB, which is the Ferguson Police Department and the Ferguson CRB to wit. Section 1A says that when scheduling a hiring or promotion panel, the Ferguson CRB will be given at least 7 days notice prior to setting a date and time. FPD's administrative assistant or designee will provide notice via email to all FCRB members, and the FCRB chair will respond with the name of the member who will serve on the panel. Under extenuating circumstances, the FCRB may agree to convening a panel with less than 7 days notice if a member is available to serve on the panel. When no one is available from the FCRB, the hiring panel may still proceed. And then section 1B says, as per the CD consent decree and city ordinance, because the members serving on the hiring/promotion panel may not participate in the review of complaints of that officer in the future, the FPD will notify the FCRB whenever an officer is hired or promoted and the date on which they were interviewed by the hiring promotion panel. The MOU text above was taken from the document that Charles Hart, from the DOJ sent to us, he sent it yesterday, and incorporates the changes we agreed to in our last session with the DOJ and the FPD. Whether it's the FPD or the HR that handles hiring/promotion panels, section 2-440 on the municipal code says members of the board will also serve on officer hiring and promotion panels. And you know how hard we work to get that, how many months we put in to get that in the MOU. And then for this change, we don't care who does it, with the HR, the assistant, whatever, but we want to be assured that this language stays the same.
Well, the city's going to meet its responsibilities.
I couldn't hear that, I'm sorry.
I said the city's going to meet its responsibilities.
I'm still not getting the last part you're saying. I'm so sorry. I had problems with my computer today on the listening piece. So if you just do it one more time.
I said the city is going to meet its responsibilities.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And but I want to be, because it took us so much to get this MOU and all the changes, the responsibilities, the city was supposed to meet its responsibility before we had to go through this iteration. And it took us all these months to make sure that it was in writing and that it would be done. So you're saying that, I appreciate that. And what I would like to do is make sure that at our next meeting, when the DOJ is down here to talk with us, that we could have that incorporated in that we have that as a in writing type thing. I understand that the city is always supposed to make its responsibilities, but that has been not happening, and that is the reason why we had to incorporate that in the MOU.
Councilwoman Barrero, I would just add that the meetings that we're having on the MOU are not finished, and that was the email that Charles sent out, was to schedule, the follow-up meeting. So that document is still a working document, and so nothing is going to change from the police department standpoint or the city standpoint on that issue that you brought up. And since that's still a working document, and that's an easy fix, when we get back together, and we can add some verbiage in there to cover any foreseeable changes or anything that we need to.
Chief, I appreciate that. Thank you so very much.
No problem, man.
Thank you, Ms. Bloom.
You're welcome. Madam Mayor, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chief Armstrong and Chief Hampton. Thank you. At this time, we have a special presentation, Human Rights Advocate Award and presentation, Tony Dupree and John Powell. Are you on the line?
We are on the line.
Okay. Unmute, Tony.
Good evening and happy almost International Human Rights Day. I'm John Powell, former Secretary of the Ferguson Human Rights Commission. In conjunction with Mayor Jones and the Ferguson City Council, we are happy to present our third annual 2020 Ferguson Advocate of the Year Awards. These awards were established to recognize individuals and groups working for human rights in Ferguson. The Human Rights Commission is guided by our commitment to raising consciousness about human rights and for hearing complaints about human rights violations according to a process that was instituted by the City Council by way of our advisement. We hope one day to have a picture at a future City Council meeting with the awardees tonight, but we hope that they are with us now on Zoom. Ms. Tony Dupree will announce our first award.
Hi, and thank you so much, City Council and Mayor Jones, for allowing us to present our Advocate of the Year awards. Our first award that we have is going to be going to the, St. Vincent de Paul Society Conference at Blessed Teresa of Calcutta Parish. Woo! They were nominated by Mr. Michael Naudiker. He says our conference provides annual food and utility assistance to over 4,400 families individuals that reside within our parish boundaries. They serve the residents of our community that need assistance with life basic necessities, human rights of food and shelter, providing utility assistance to prevent service disconnects and food that comes from a wide variety of sources, like community donations, St. Louis Area Food Bank, Operation Food Search, local area businesses. The conference members serve all members of the community without discrimination of any kind, as their mission is to serve those who come to us in time of need. The Ferguson City Council and the Human Rights Commission, we are happy to award the St. Vincent de Paul Society Conference one of our Advocate of the Year awards for 2020. We appreciate Michael Nordiker and Michael Cunningham of the conference for being here on Zoom to accept your award. So are they on the line? Yay! So let me got to take these out the box.
Yes,
so this is what the award looks like.
yes.
Ooh.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Commission, for that recognition. We have a lot of team members as part of our conference that does the work at 2 different food pantries. We have utility call assistant team members. There's lots and lots of people involved and hours of work that go into it. So all are very committed to the community and again, providing those basic necessities to those who come to us. So thank you.
Again, thank you. Woo! Congratulations. Now back over to John.
Thank you, Tony. We would like to now honor Miss Latasha Brown. Nominated by Mr. Alan Mueller, he says, Latasha Brown has been an extremely effective advocate for human rights in Southeast Ferguson and the surrounding community. Her work has embodied the mission of connect, grow, and empower. In response to requirements of the Ferguson Consent Decree, Ms. Brown helped establish a neighborhood association to serve her underrepresented area of Ferguson. Later, the neighborhood association was reorganized as the Southeast Ferguson Community Association, a registered not-for-profit. Formalizing the association's status facilitated collaborations and donations that brought many resources into the community. The Southeast Ferguson Community Association has sponsored many block parties and neighborhood festivals to help neighbors get acquainted and develop personal connections. During these events, the association distributed school supplies, toys, and clothing. The association has also organized town halls, apartment complex meetings, and field trips to inform and grow understanding within the community on a wide variety of issues, such as political elections, physical wellness care, and urban farming and nutrition. When residents of Southeast Ferguson were threatened by the failures of TEH management, Ms. Brown proved especially effective in supporting and empowering the residents of the affected apartment complexes. She helped organize neighborhood associations for each of the apartment complexes to unify and strengthen the tenants' voices. She organized town halls to provide valuable information on tenant rights. She also helped identify resources for rent and utility assistance. Ms. Brown helped convert 2 apartments into a community space, serving both adults and youth in the area. The community center provides a youth meetup space as well as a computer resource center complete with free internet access and after-school tutoring. Ms. Brown's efforts have been achieved by securing grant money and by effective collaboration with Urban Strategies Incorporated, local youth agencies, local farmers, and many other organizations. During the past months, Ms. Brown has arranged for deliveries of fresh produce and for financial assistance to residents acutely affected by the extra burdens resulting from COVID-19. The many community events that Latasha Brown has helped organize have brought people together, informed and supported them, and given them a greater voice to truly connect, grow, and empower. It is our pleasure to present a 2020 Advocate of the Year Award to Miss Latasha Brown.
Woo! Yay!
Sorry.
And now back to Ms. Dupree for our final award.
All right, our final and last awardee is to Dr. Jackie Lewis Harris. She was nominated by Cassandra Butler, who says, Miss Jackie Lewis Harris is a treasure residing in the city of Ferguson and has shared her gifts with us freely in the last 6 years. She contributes her talents and skills in many organizations in Ferguson, both official and grassroots type organizations. She contributes managerial know-how as well as her ability to tap financial resources in from many grants. She was a board member of the Ferguson Youth Initiative and helped that organization develop to the point where they could hire a full-time director. She is a member of the Neighborhood Policing Steering Committee, the Ferguson Collaborative, and is an executive member of the reconstituted Proud organization. As such, she has brought a national organization to Ferguson to do a workshop on racial unity and equality, and has brought other academic and resources to Ferguson to conduct workshops and town hall type program. She has worked with senior resident groups within Ferguson to assess and address their needs. It is our pleasure to present the 2020 Advocate of the Year Award to Dr. Jackie Lewis Harris. Woo! Congratulations. Is
Yes.
she on?
Yes.
I just want to say that.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. We at Ferguson Human Rights, we take these awards very seriously. We read through them. We make sure that the individuals that are being nominated are doing the things that help elevate and move Ferguson forward in the area of human rights. So we will be preparing for our next year, 2021. So we are getting excited about getting that done and look forward to getting more awardees for next year. Thank you, you guys. John?
We also want to say thank you to all the award winners who were able to join us on Zoom. And soon we'll be sending out nomination forms for 2021. And we appreciate Mayor Jones and the Ferguson City Council members for declaring Thursday as International Human Rights Day in Ferguson. We hope all citizens will pause to think about how they are working to advance human rights in our city as well as in our state and country. So thank you to you all.
That concludes our presentation. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations to all our honorees. Let's give them another hand.
Mayor Jones, if you will, John Paul has not been present the last couple of times that we have commended him for all of his work that he's done over the years. And so, John, we sent you something, and Byron gave you a big old salute the last time he mentioned how the work that you have done. And I just want to tell you, thank you for a job well done.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you to Councilman Fry as well. Thank you.
You would like to share, Councilman Fry? Unmute.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm just just Christmas spirit, and thanks John for all he did. His hard work and dedication, because a lot of times HRC really was John. Mm-hmm. He was the man, the backbone.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you so much for being there.
Thank you to Councilman Fry. I also like to thank Councilwoman Mitchum from the past. And thank you to Mayor Jones as well. And thank you for the shout out, Councilwoman Burrow.
Amen.
All right. Let's give him another hand. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now we move to our consent agenda. We have the minutes of the council regular meeting for November the 10th and council special meeting November the 12th. Are there any corrections? I hear none. I would like to entertain a motion and a second to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Seconded.
I heard Councilwoman Burrow first and Councilman Fry seconded. Are you ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it, so ordered. Now we're going to move to our appointments. We have 3 appointments tonight. We are going to start with the appointment to the Plan Commission. We have Adrian Shropshire, who's interested in being on the Plan Commission, and it is appointment by council. So Councilwoman Fran, what is your pleasure?
I would like to make the motion to appoint Adrian Shropshire to the Planning Commission.
Seconded.
It has been properly moved in second. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Adrian Shropshire, you are now a member of the Plan Commission. We have 2 other appointments. They are mayoral appointments, and one is Marissa Curtis, and she has been talking to Tony Dupree, and she has consented to be on the Human Rights Commission. So at this time, I would like to appoint Marissa Curtis to the Human Rights Commission. Our second appointment is Deanna. She liked to be called D. Parks, to the Human Rights Commission. Had a great conversation with her the other day, and she and her husband are ready to go to work on the Human Rights Commission. I would like to appoint D. Parks to the Human Rights Commission. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah! You go. Thank you. At this time, we have a proclamation, and it's a proclamation in recognition of Human Rights Day. Whereas in 1948, the leaders of the 48 countries from around the world declared with one voice that progress depends and defending human rights, and that a nation is strongest when the contribution of its whole citizenry are valued. And whereas annually, December the 10th is observed to commemorate the day in 1948 that the United Nations General Assembly adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And whereas the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a milestone in our ongoing global march to uphold the inherent dignity and worth of every person. And whereas the city of Ferguson shares the values and beliefs of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and acknowledge that all humans are born free and equal in dignity and rights, and they are endowed with reason and conscience and should act toward one another in the spirit of brotherhood. And whereas all are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination to equal protection of the law. Now, therefore, I, Ella Jones, Mayor of the City of Ferguson, do hereby proclaim December the 10th as Human Rights Day. In the city of Ferguson, Missouri, citizens are urged to join me as we celebrate and honor the legacy of Universal Declaration of Human Rights and ensure that its ideals endure for generations to come, and to reaffirm our commitment to equality for all people. Thank you. And we will pause on the 10th, like you asked, to acknowledge the Universal Declaration of Human Rights Day. Thank you. We move to the next item on our agenda. Resolution number 2020-46. Without any objections, will introduce by council members present.
I do have an objection, Mayor.
Okay.
On the wording of that resolution, it says that it is presented by the mayor and all council members. And I don't think all council members were in agreement from the very beginning. So I would like to have that wording changed because I know that I have issues and concerns about this.
Okay.
And can we hear that, what that is, or what those issues are?
We're talking about the comprehensive plan, the 2040 plan.
Right, and I wanted to know, can we hear your objections?
Do you have 160 pages worth of concerns?
No, it's 220, it's 220 pages.
So I'm not going to start that conversation because it's going to take way too long. And
Okay.
So what I will say is I just would like the wording to be reflective of the fact that it's not an unanimous presentation.
Okay, so noted.
Thank you.
Before we move on, Mayor, please, for clarity, I need to understand what it is that we're changing. Am I changing?
What she's saying, that when I ask the question, without objection, we will introduce by council members present. And her objection is that she is not in agreement that she is a part of all the council members who will introduce this bill. This resolution. She can also make her point when we ask for a second for the approval, she could state then her objections.
Okay, but my question is, so am I only removing, because when she mentioned it, that's in the title. So
right.
Clarity, are we amending the title, or am I simply taking away her as one being introduced?
So what I'm sorry, go ahead, Mayor.
As one as being introduced, she is not one of the council members who want to introduce this resolution. Is that not correct?
I got a question. If that's the situation, then it's not for all council members present. So that's the situation. If one of us is not in agreement with it, that changes that statement that you made.
Correct.
Okay.
So be a majority then?
I'm sorry,
It could be majority or it could be selected council members.
Right. It makes a difference.
Okay, so one of the things, and Attorney Carey, if you would please, one of the things that I'm thinking is if we amend the title that reads similar to the other ones that just says it's a resolution of the city of Ferguson, Missouri, and then also remove her name from the beginning or from the introduced by.
Right.
Just remember, I think you can remove her name from the introduced by.
So don't change the title?
If the title says introduced by all council members present, then you can change it. But
yeah, that's what it says.
Yeah,
introduced by council members present.
Yes.
Right.
Then okay. Yeah, Octavia's solution is. I think Octavia's solution would work.
Okay, so my question is twofold, right? So one is I can remove her name from introduced by, and I know you're going to proceed to do the actual reading and you'll see what I mean. In the actual title, it says what she says, a resolution by the mayor and city council approving Normally it doesn't read like that. So my, because it does say it that way, is that what she was disputing is what I was asking.
Yeah, I mean, we can change that to say just a resolution by the city of Ferguson. It's fine.
So Linda, since you had,
I'll read it that way.
okay, Linda, since you have an objection, I would like to go back and read resolution number 2020-46. Without objection, we're introduced by some of the council members present. Will that work?
As long as it's okay with Apollo and Octavia, I am fine with that.
Oh, should not the word be select, not some? I mean, if we're going to do this
by
legally.
selected council members.
Right.
Okay.
I would say the majority. It said the majority. If only one person opposed, that means the majority.
That's fine.
I don't know.
That would cause for a vote.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
select. Thank you, Tony.
Okay.
By selected council members. Attorney Carey, would you read the resolution, please?
Yes, ma'am. Resolution number 2020-46, a resolution by the city of Ferguson approving the adoption of the revised and updated comprehensive plan, our Ferguson comprehensive plan for the city of Ferguson.
Interim city manager, would you please explain?
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor and Council. I'd be happy to. As an aside, I did want to start by thanking Justin Carney and Miriam Keller, who are both on tonight, for their hard work, and recognize that at a point in time very early in this year, we were getting close to being complete as the pandemic began, and asked them to put it on hold, and have been just gone out of their way, gone the extra mile to help get us to this point. Mr. Carney's in the audience, as I said, and I'd ask him just to do a quick summary of the resolution and, more importantly, the comprehensive plan.
Thank you, Jeff. Ms. Pittman, is it possible for me to share screen?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Let's see here. And hopefully everybody can see my screen.
Yes.
So thank you, Jeff, Madam Mayor, Council. Thank you for having us here tonight. I can say on behalf of Miriam and I, the rest of the Development Strategies crew, and Brian Hurd and the team at Rise Community Development, and we're really happy to be finally to this point. Tonight with the resolution, it's the final action on the planning process. We see this also really as essentially the kickoff to the implementation of the plan. It's a great milestone. It's something that I think we are excited to be here tonight, and hopefully you all are excited to celebrate as well. I have just 5 minutes worth of just some comments to kind of just, I guess, get us to the point of, is this going to advance for me or not? To just kind of get us to the point of having the resolution. As Jeff said, it's been just a little bit over 18 months of a planning process. Some of that includes what I'm calling the pandemic delay, or a little bit of a pause that we had in late spring, early summer, a few months there. But throughout this entire process, we have done, we have strived to have a very engaging and thoughtful community engagement process. I know from Miriam and I, and lots of conversations that we've had over this time, we have learned a lot. We have learned a lot from you and from the community about the city of Ferguson. We have built a lot of trust in the process. Trust in the planning process, but I mean trust in the process of planning, of setting a community vision, setting community strategies, and really helping people understand what is a comprehensive plan and how can it help the city move forward. We've had a lot of great conversations, and that's what we're sharing on the screen here. From stakeholder meetings to community workshops to work sessions with all of you and other stakeholders. Again, we've really gotten a sense of what it means to experience the city of Ferguson. I know you have seen me several times present to you all, whether here or in the Plan Commission. And I think every time I would be remiss if I did not give a shout out to our wonderful steering committee. We have really valued working with the committed and engaged steering committee. From day one, we had Councilwoman Griffin there and others from the steering committee on our very first day of kickoffs doing city tours with us and having stakeholder meetings, all the way through to the work sessions that we've held over the last couple of months. And we couldn't be more thankful for their guidance throughout this process. As Jeff said, we were actually working our way towards having an adoption early in the spring. I think we were trying to get this adopted before the municipal elections, and then COVID hit. The elections were delayed. We just kind of pushed pause on the whole process. And so after the June elections, and once things kind of settled back down again, we've rekindled the approval process. And just in the last few months, you can see here some of the work that we've done as we've continued to try to continue this philosophy and this approach of continued community engagement and having conversations to really shape and have a comprehensive plan that at the end of the day is something that the city can use. So as you see here, we've had work sessions with the steering committee, with the Plan Commission, with you all a couple of times. We've gotten online and emailed comments from the public. Had 2 virtual open, kind of open house question and answers Q&A sessions. And that's what we've been doing over the last few months. Really, I think we started our steering committee back up again in July and August. So all of those comments, all of those conversations that we've had just in the last 3 or 4 months have really led, as I said, to refinements and modifications, additions to the plan to really make it, again, like I said, what the plan needs to be for the community. On the refinement side, a lot of the comments that we got via email that we got during our online through our online comment form helped us identify important typos. I think Ms. Brooks' email about the typo of the transit route, unfortunate that we made that typo, but there it was, and she pointed it out. We got it fixed in the text. We got it fixed on the map. Other narrative elements, came up. People would read something and say, "Hey, could you give a little more emphasis to a particular topic?" I remember a conversation with the Plan Commission. One of the commissioners mentioned, how can we talk about the knowledge-based economy? How can we talk about the Ferguson economy in a regional context? Things like that, we started to, kind of emphasize some key points, bring that up in the text. That led to some map revisions and just kind of pulling it all together. Those were some of the smaller refinements that we were able to integrate, throughout the document. Some of the modifications and additions that we did really came from the Plan Commission and from the City Council members and the work sessions we had there. They were designed, those comments came at us, and what we built into the plan, the changes that you saw, were really designed to enhance the usability of the plan. Help different people, whether it's elected officials, appointed officials, staff, or the community, help them understand what is this document and how do we use this going forward. So the land use decision-making framework, the strategic land use map, those all changed considerably from August through November based on comments from the Plan Commission. We established a user's guide after having our city council work session to try and help people again to kind of walk through the document and how can they use that. And so all of those changes are what Miriam and I and the folks from RISE have been working on for the last 3 months to get to the draft that we have today. Really those changes, the bigger changes, the modifications and additions, as I said, were really an attempt to guide users of the plan from planning to action. And really, it's that focus on action that I want to leave you with. A couple of comments about that to leave you with tonight. Call it a call to action for action. if you will. As Miriam and I were talking about this today over the last couple of days and thinking about the presentation, we see the passage of the resolution tonight really is the culmination of that 18-month planning process that we started with. It's the culmination of the planning, but essentially it's the kickoff of implementation. It's the kickoff of action for the Our Ferguson 2040 plan. We highlighted the folks and we created this slide to just say, already people are already looking towards action. The mayor is already moving ahead with her appointed task force. City council members and plan commissioners in the work sessions that we've had, in conversations, just personal conversations we've had, are already identifying specific issues, specific projects that they want to see happen in the next year or two. We already know that the staff is already taking action. I know there's a parks master plan underway. I know Elliot is interested in getting the zoning code updated, and all of that, really kind of centered around the vision and the goals of the comprehensive plan. One group here, the community groups, the partners. I recognize John. I know Alan was in the audience. I hope he still is. The folks that have been at the community meetings with us, at the community workshops. I would encourage you all to download the plan and read the plan. Find the areas that interest you, certainly from the Human Rights Commission to the Southeast Ferguson, neighborhood groups. Find the areas that interest you. Find how they're talked about in the plan. Embrace that, and then use the plan as your tool to engage city government. That is really one of the best ways that this plan can be used. Certainly the council, appointed officials, the staff, the task force are going to use it to guide their actions. But as you engage with the city and as the community at large engages with the city, using the plan, using its vision is one way to keep that plan alive. And we all hear the phrase living document. Using the language in the plan, using the vision and the strategies in the plan is one way to keep that document as a living document. So I think with that, Mayor, that's really all I wanted to do tonight. I'm excited that we're at this point. I wanted to, thank you for inviting us to celebrate this with you tonight. There's a lot of great ideas in the plan. There's a lot of good vision in our Ferguson 2040. And the vision really reflects the community pride that I know everyone in this room has. And I'm just excited, and we're excited to see what you're going to do with it in the coming years. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to work with you to create this.
Thank you. City Manager, you have any more to add?
Sorry, I couldn't unmute. My apologies. No, I do not. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. I would like to receive a motion and a second for approval.
Make the motion to approve.
So second.
Councilwoman Fran Griffin made the motion and second by Councilman Byron Fry. Clerk Pittman, would you do the roll call?
Councilman Fry.
Aye.
Councilwoman Griffin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Burrow. Councilwoman Burrow, you still there?
Yes, aye.
Councilwoman Robinette.
She's having the mute issues again.
Okay. Okay. Is that an aye? Did she have an aye? Okay. Mayor Jones.
Aye.
Councilwoman Lipka.
Nay.
Councilman.
The ayes have it, so ordered.
Councilman
Garrett.
Go
We
ahead.
miss it.
Okay, go ahead.
We miss Garrett.
Okay.
Aye.
Now, okay, the ayes have it, so order. Resolution number 2020-46 passes. Thank you for your hard work, staff, and the steering committee and the residents who participated in the workshops. Next on the agenda, we have resolution number 2020-47. Without objections, we are introduced by council members present. I hear no objections. Attorney Carey, would you please read the resolution?
Yes, ma'am. Resolution number 2020-47. A resolution approving a re-subdivision of a tract of land in part of U.S. Survey 2689 and 393, Township 46 North, Range 6 East, City of Ferguson, St. Louis County, Missouri, and known as 400, 472, and 488 Paul Avenue.
Interim City Manager, would you please explain?
Yes, I'd be happy to. This is more of a housekeeping matter and to assist the owner of the property with respect to its merchantability. And Mr. Leibson is also present to supply any information as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Hearing no questions, I'm requesting a motion and a second for approval.
So moved.
Seconded.
We have a motion by Councilman Byron Fry, second by Councilwoman Fran Griffin. Clerk Pittman, would you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Griffin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Burrow.
Aye.
Councilwoman Robinette. Uh-oh, let me find her.
She raised her hand.
She's saying aye.
Is she saying aye? Okay, I have a lot of screens, so I can't see her. Mayor Jones.
Aye.
Councilwoman Lipka.
Aye.
Councilman Garrett.
Aye.
Councilman Fry.
Aye.
Great. Resolution number 2020-47 passes. Resolution number 2020-48. Without objections, we will introduce by council members present.
Mayor, I do have an objection. I would like to request, Mayor Jones, that we table this resolution as well as resolution 2020-49 for further discussion during a special meeting, for reasons being that there are 14 budget changes on resolution 2020-48 and 31 on resolution 2020-49. And I think that kind of adjustment to our budget needs to be discussed more intently. And I do not want to pass this. I would like to ask, I'm not saying we don't pass it in the future, but I would like request that we put this on hold and have a special meeting to discuss over 45 changes to our budget.
I agree.
Okay.
I second that.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Okay.
May I
Jeff?
counsel?
Yes, Jeff.
Yes, thank you very much. I understand, I don't really, but there may be a question or two or three or more. But I would also remind the councilman that, as you might recall earlier this evening, as Mr. Schulte was reviewing the comprehensive annual financial report for the city, we as a city have a filing requirement for that report, both with the authorities that hold our debt, as well as the Securities and Exchange Commission, as well as the Missouri State Auditor. And the reason that that document said preliminary on it is because it is awaiting Resolution 2020-48, there is a requirement within the state of Missouri that a entity may not spend more than it has appropriated. The council has given me the authority to change budget amounts on a intra divisional basis. So I can move dollars from one account to another on a given division, whether that's the police department or the fire department or any of the other divisions, but not interdivisionally. So I can't take dollars from the police department and put them in the fire department. That can only be done by a resolution like this one. Number one. Number two, we've already spent money. Number three, what happens in the budget process, and I know that everybody works very hard in the budget process. And what happens is, from time to time, there are errors made or analysis, or errors in analysis, or life gets in the way. And we end up spending more than we had originally intended to within a given account or division. And so that is really the purpose of this. We cannot file our financial statements without this resolution.
When are those?
One at a time.
I'd like to make a statement. Mr. Bloom, when it comes to this type of requirement, I know for a fact that you can go in ahead of that and say to wherever it's due, we'd like to do an abatement. And I'm just using that word. There's 3 or 4 words I can use if you don't like that one. And we could say preliminary, depending on after we have the meetings that Linda has just introduced. So that, I don't think that's a game changer. I don't think it should tie your hands. There's another word, accrual, that if you don't like abatement, I think that this is not the only way. And I understand that we have to have that turned in, but I do know that you can send a letter ahead of time. I've done it myself, so I know it's possible. And so you tell me if you don't know about it, then we can go into that a little bit deeper. Thank you so much for listening. And Linda, are you on the same page as me or not?
Well, the question I have.
Linda is next. Let Linda speak. Linda?
The question that I have, Mr. Bloom, is when you talk about the urgency of this, is there legalities? How are those legalities affect the city? And what is the deadline? I mean, are we saying that is there a legal presence that says this has to be submitted by December 31st? What is the deadline, and what are the legalities, and what are the consequences of not making the deadline?
Okay, to answer your question first, the deadline is 180 days from June 30th, which is December 27th.
Okay.
So second, of all of those items that I did mention, the most important is with the Securities and Exchange Commission through their entity called the MSRB. And while it is certainly true that we can file a document with the MSRB that says we're going to be late in our filing, from a reputational perspective, it really is deleterious to the city.
When we're talking about,
Okay.
Can I answer this question, please?
Go ahead.
Because it's relevant to that. Is that okay, friend? Okay. When you say that, the reputation, I get that. But if you're talking about forcing our hand to sign this and go ahead without us going through what Linda and Fran and I are talking about, then I think I take a chance on my reputation, because we have had a wonderful reputation this far. Don't forget, pandemic. I cannot imagine how many people are going to be doing that just because you can't get a tire put on because of the pandemic. So I think, I'm sorry, Brian.
We can't, but we're Ferguson. We're in a whole different ballgame.
Okay.
We got to keep everything straight. It's like this has been brought up earlier.
Thanks, Byron. So what I'm saying to you is that I think it is expedient upon us to go through this, when you get these many numbers that we want to go through, that we want to look at, I think it's worth of saying, we're going to send an accrual, we're going to ask for an abatement, whatever it takes. I would say go with it, because during this time and what we're going through, even with the consent decree, all of those things come into play. We need a little bit more time on this one. And I don't think anybody would hold that against us. Thank you.
Fran?
So we have, and I know it will need a couple of days, you know, to give ourselves some cushion, but we're looking at roughly around 2 weeks to have a special meeting to talk about 45 different lines of appropriations that we're going to be making. I think between now and then we should be able to sit down and just go over that. I also heard Linda say she put forth and she actually made a motion and I seconded it. I heard that. And so I don't want to pretend as if that didn't happen. Actually, what should have probably happened was like a point of information or something along those lines so Jeffrey could explain. But it was an actual motion and it was a second out there to have a special meeting. So I would be in favor of it. I can make myself available now, in between now and the 27th, to have that meeting so we go over it. But it's a large amount of money that we just received. So I think, and if we as a council can't explain to our residents what's happening with this money, then that puts us in a position where we're relying solely on you, Jeffrey. And so I want to be well informed about this. I want to have a clear understanding. I want to know what these line items are. I want to know where this money is going, and so that I can be clear in putting my vote forward.
And I don't have a problem relying on somebody as long as I'm in a partnership in that reliance. I don't want to just be singularly relying on somebody. So, so just to be clear, what I'd like to put forth is I'd like to make a motion that we put these resolutions on hold in an effort to have a special meeting to discuss the items. I would also like to go forth in saying that I would, with knowing the deadline that Jeffrey needs these answers by, I would suggest that we look at December 14th and December 17th as the special meeting dates if we happen to need to. But December 14th to be one that gives us that week that Fran's talking about, and it gets us before Christmas. And if we are desperate, we can meet after Christmas, but no, we can't. It's not going to work. But that's what I would say. That's my motion.
So we're in discussion time on the motion, and so I'd like to say I don't want to meet another meeting in December. If you're gonna, there's nothing wrong with going past that deadline. I know it's not. There are going to be thousands of companies and cities that's going to do the same thing. So I don't want to hold. Have you hold us, Jeffrey, like that. And one of the things that bothers me is that full authority. And so I've seen that go awry. And I'm not interested in putting myself in that position again, full authority and expecting to get the partnership that we think we have, and it's really not there. So that's my reason. And it's just as simple as that. I don't trust it. I would like to see it. I think Fran has the same idea. I want to know what I'm telling my constituents, and I want to see it for myself. I am not interested in having another meeting in December at all. So I think if we're going to move it, let's move it to the first of the year. And you write that letter and tell them we're going to move it. And I bet you a nickel to a dime, it would be no problem.
Councilwoman Burrow, I agree with what you're saying. I hear with what you're saying, but I also agree with what Councilman Fry said. We are held at a whole different level standard. And so my compromise to go to what you're saying, I mean, I don't like having a meeting in December. I'm sure Councilman Fry is the biggest one against it. But
I'm gonna tell you, Linda, you don't have to do that, because I'm not gonna vote no. So you don't have to explain it to me. I'm good to go with that. No problem.
I just want to take every opportunity to get all these answers that we need, but also do it in a possible way of maintaining our reputation. And if it ends up in January, then it does, but it's not because we didn't try.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, I'm not going to a meeting in December. This is my last one. So if that's what you want to do, is have a meeting, I'm okay with that. It's just I'm not going to do. You know how you didn't want to do a certain thing? It's okay. We don't have to beat the dead horse.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay.
Apollo,
No problem. Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
would you weigh in for a minute? Is it feasible?
Well, that's not really a legal question. I mean, you guys certainly, if you have time to have the meeting, the council can decide to have the meeting. If certain council members don't want to be there, if you have a quorum, you can certainly move forward with handling the business of the county, or excuse me, of the city.
Linda put forth 2 different dates, the 14th and the 17th. Would anybody else be open or available to meet to do that?
I cannot do the 17th. I mean the 14th.
Do you have a date that week, Byron, that you can do as our first meeting?
No, I just can't do the 14th.
So, I'm sorry. Say that.
I guess the 15th then.
Okay. I mean, I can do the 15th. I'd be missing a meeting, but this is important. But I just think if we can have a quorum there, I think you want to probably be at the first meeting because that's where the meat of the discussion is going to be and may possibly be the only meeting necessary.
But there's still a motion on the floor.
Right.
Right.
I seconded it. It was a
We're
motion.
in the discussion of it.
We're in discussion.
Okay.
We're in the discussion of the motion. We still need to come up with a date. We can't just leave the motion hanging out there.
So can we, I'm sorry, Mayor, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
We need a date. We just can't leave that motion hanging out there and then later on try to figure out a date. If we're gonna do it, we need a date.
Mayor, could we do a straw poll from December 15th so that Byron can be there?
Anyone that cannot make it on December the 15th.
I'm not gonna make it.
Okay.
So one person down. One, Miss Tony's out. Heather, I don't.
Yeah, I can do the 15th.
Okay.
Okay. So we can do the 15th. Okay. So where does that leave that motion? You need to.
Do I need to amend it?
Your motion and put your date in it, please.
Yes, ma'am. So I make a motion that on December 15th, we have a special meeting starting at 6 p.m. to discuss Resolution 2020-48 and 2020-49 in detail so that we can come to a conclusion before the deadline of December 27th for our city manager.
Second the motion.
It is a second. At this point, I would like to get a roll call vote instead of aye. So Clerk Pittman, could you call a roll, please?
Councilwoman Burrow.
Aye.
Councilwoman Robinette.
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye.
Councilwoman Lipka.
Aye.
Councilman Garrett.
Aye.
Councilman Fry.
Aye.
And Councilwoman Griffin.
Aye.
So ordered, we will have a special meeting on December the 15th to discuss Resolution 2020-40-48 and Resolution 2020-49. Okay. We don't have any bills for first reading. We do have a bill for second reading. I would like to, bill number 7199, request a motion and a second to read the bill a second time and place upon its passage. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Oh.
So moved.
Second it.
Did you get the motion? Who, and a second? Okay. Attorney Carey, would you please read the bill number 7199?
Yes, ma'am. Bill number 7199, an ordinance amending section 30-67 of the municipal code in order to change the hours during which persons may be present in Ferguson public parks.
Interim City Manager Bloom, do you have anything to add?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Okay. Council, do you have any additional questions or would like to add anything? Clerk Pittman, would you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Robinette,
Aye.
Mayor Jones,
Aye.
Councilwoman Lipka,
Aye.
Councilman Garrett,
Aye.
Councilman Fry,
Aye.
Councilwoman Griffin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Burrow.
Aye.
Bill number 7199 passes. We had a new business added to the agenda. So I am going to put new business here before we have unfinished business. What is the new business?
So Mayor, I have 3 items for considerations. The first item is an introduction of the conversation of the Ferguson Times. There are city stakeholders that have taken on the task of continuing the Ferguson Times. The people involved are Tony Lanero, Bob McCarty, Pierce Nykirk, Gary Nadeau. If I said it wrong, I apologize, sir, and Bob McGartland. And they are looking to continue the newspaper, keep it going without it ending. And there was a request for the budgetary appropriations that we currently give the Ferguson Times to continue throughout the budget year. And I know that there was a lot of questions between our city manager and Bob McGartland, and they were excellent questions that I did get some answers to. And I wanted to share that. So one of the questions was, what will be the frequency of this newspaper? It will continue to be monthly. In January, they are looking, the next question was, how many pages will there be? Their January issue will have around 8 pages and will continue to grow as possible. They're going to conduct a contest in January with the readers to help name the new paper. So we do not have an entity that we can refer to it by besides the continuation of Ferguson Times currently. How will it be disseminated? And the answer to that is as a community-friendly information publication. How many copies are they looking to produce? And they want to stay close to the current level, which is around 15,000 copies, 9,000 to 10,000 mailed. Their support models will include community support, which is already in place with the residents and growing, as well as advertising, sales, and financial contributions, which are also being put into place. Profit, will it be a profit entity? It will not be a nonprofit, but is not going to be a profit-making entity. It's going to be a self-sufficient entity. So the profits that they make are going to be directly put back into the source, into the paper. So it's not making anybody rich. We're not going to have a JP Getty in the house anytime soon, or at all. And then basically what they would like to do is continue the relationship with the city as a community partner, as well as becoming and continuing to be a source of community information with the continuation of the community advertising. This will enable things to remain set in place, such as your column, the mayor's column, and so forth. And I would just like to put it out there. I know that they need to most likely come and make a presentation before council, which I have no problem with that. But I want to get the conversation started. I wanted to bring it up in new business, and I wanted to put it out there that I would like to see our council continue with the appropriation of budgetary commitment throughout this budget year That will give us at least till July to kind of see how things are moving with this new process and see what we want to do going into the next budget year. So that was one issue. My second new business, I would like to ask the council to support me in creating a proclamation to thank and honor Bud and Dorothy Sider for their years in the past for the Ferguson Times. So I would like to ask the community support, but I meant to say the council support in creating that proclamation. And then my third issue under new business is I have some concerns about the current state of emergency order that we have. And I'm not to say that I don't think we need to have a state of emergency. I do, but I do take some issue with the way it was worded in the very beginning of the emergency order, because it states in there, it says, in issuing the order, I take note of the recommendations of the Center for Disease Control, CDC, State of Missouri Health Department, and St. Louis County Health Department. I have also consulted available members of the City Council with our city staff, including the city attorney and all department heads, and issue this order in absence of the quorum of the City Council. So I have some issue there, because when there is a state of emergency, if somebody reaches out to me as a council member, especially my mayor or my city manager in a state of emergency, I'm going to respond to you instantaneously. That's a 911 call. I was never contacted. I also know that Councilman Garrett was not contacted. Councilwoman Robinette was not contacted. Councilwoman Burrow was not contacted. So I have issue with it being worded as if we were not available, because we weren't even approached. And I will tell you, Mayor, if you have a 911 situation and I get a contact from you, whether it be an email or a text, you will have my immediate response. You will have my immediate response. But you put out in a state of emergency order that makes it sound that I didn't respond or I wasn't available, I have some problem with that. I also have a concern with the fact that we say, in the absence of the quorum of the City Council, which will be effective immediately, yet this was given to us on the 25th of November to be effective November 30th. So we're looking at another whole 5 days out, which that's not immediate. So I have concern with, are we setting a precedent that immediate, it doesn't really mean immediate. It means immediate to the point of when we want to start it. And the other issue I have is on point 9, a moratorium on the issuance of a certain door-to-door permits, but expressly allow those for candidates to get names needed for their nominating petition, as long as social distancing is followed and masks are worn consistent with the St. Louis County's order. So I think we have a bit of an issue there, and maybe Mr. Carey can help me out here, but if we are going to allow people to go door to door for campaigning, but we're not allowing people to make a living and a wage, earning a wage, if that happens to be their way of making a living wage, we are having a contradiction there. I think we have to be very clear. We're either saying it's too dangerous to go door to door, or it isn't. And we also have the fact that the petitions aren't even due until January. So we have plenty of time there for the people to work on those things and get themselves on the ballot. And then number 10, the concern I had there was it's stated very clearly throughout your state of emergency that we are following the guidelines of St. Louis County in all areas. But yet on number 10, we say members of the public who are patrons of any business establishments are required to wear a mask at all times while conducting business in these facilities, except when seated in a dining establishment. Yet when this went out, county already said there's no seating in dining establishments. So there's a sense of confusion there. We're confusing new business owners who want to have people in their establishments. We're confusing people who are like, okay, is this just as confusing as, do I go to St. Charles and sit down and eat? Do I go to Ferguson and sit down and eat? Do I, so I have some concerns. And so I would request that we address these concerns, reissue this with the proper corrections, and move forward from there.
Apollo, will you address door to door?
Sure. So, as we discussed, I think the power of the mayor during the civil emergency is outlined in the ordinances, and it gives the mayor the power to basically to issue an order doing or refraining from all acts necessary and incidental to protect life and property. At the end of the day, the civil emergency order is the mayor's sort of power to decide, I guess, what's necessary and what might be incidental to protect life and property. And, I don't necessarily see a contradiction in the fact that the mayor, decides that, it's door-to-door solicitations for one purpose, as long as, social distancing and mask requirements are followed, is necessary, and not for other purposes is necessarily a contradiction. I think it's just the mayor's discretion to say, this particular activity is allowable for door to door as long as protocols are followed, but that's it. We're limiting, basically limiting. It's like a restriction. In general, you'll see a lot of complaining about some of these health orders and what's constitutional and what can be enforced and what should be enforced. So a lot of it in general, to be quite frank with you, coming down from the county, even on the state level, is probably, from my perspective, probably too restrictive on businesses and whether or not it can actually be enforced ultimately. Now, they can actually cite you, they can cite you and take you to court. But if you have enough resources, whether or not it actually ends up holding up is another question. So, but sort of back to the issue of the emergency proclamation, I don't necessarily see it as a contradiction that the mayor is limiting that behavior or limiting the issuance of the door-to-door solicitations to, that particular use. But, again, the council has power to, terminate the emergency order if they don't like it or if they don't want it. I know obviously what you guys are trying to do is try to work it out short of that. I guess maybe a conversation between, you guys could remedy any issues if a quorum of the council feels as if it needs to be changed, then, you guys have the right to terminate. So short of that, maybe the mayor would, be willing to accommodate your concerns. But I don't, as it stands, necessarily see a contradiction with allowing the door-to-door for one thing and not for others.
I don't see the addiction either. What I see might be the case is when you allow for the 30th, then reading that, Linda, what I see is you had 5 days and we had already sent out something to one of the new restaurants, chiding them for having a party, for saying, and I don't know what happened on social media, but I hear that he sent in an apology and all of that, but that seemed kind of strange to me in the world that we live in right now. Everybody ought to know that we had something from the CDC, something from the St. Louis County, and something from Dr. Page, that we should not be having inside dining. And so that person was allowed by proxy, because I guess he didn't know. I don't know how he didn't know, because I called Elliot and said, how is it that this person gets into a new business and didn't know that he was not supposed to have eating inside the restaurant. What was confusing to me when I read the declaration was that, one, I was never contacted. And I looked over, I've got computers all over this office right now. I looked on all 3 of my telephones. I got no call from you, Mayor. I looked on all my computers, nothing. 6 email addresses, nothing. So that confused me that you had contacted and that you could not reach me. And when you say you could not reach the council, that included me. So I took offense to that, because if you called me, and you have called me, I answer you every time, immediately. And so I see a lack of inclusion here. That's confusing. And that is contradictory to what we say we do, that we all inclusive, we're not. So that's exclusion. And so I think to Attorney Carey's merit is that if we have the opportunity, we being the council, to discuss these things, nobody would be confused. Businesses wouldn't, well, if I see that they didn't see the declaration, what I was concerned about is they wouldn't see it until the 30th, but somebody said they saw it right away. If it's not in effect till the 30th, okay, so then you've got people with a Dr. Page order saying don't have inside dining. But we've got a declaration over here from you, Mayor, that's saying this is going to go into effect until the 30th. There was confusion. So maybe Councilman Lipka, maybe it wasn't contradictory. I saw confusion. And that's what it was. And I know we have the right to say, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to pull that declaration back until we can get some camaraderie here, till we can get everybody join in and say, let's take this out, add this, because one mind is better than 2, maybe. Somebody think like that? But I have always been taught 2 heads are better than 1. And so we got 7 folks on this council that I think are highly intelligent, including yourself. And so I think we should be put to the task of saying, let's formulate this thing, let's talk about it. And so, Councilman Lipka, I didn't see the contradiction. I saw the confusion, and I saw a couple of other things, and I think you've dictated enough. I would suggest that in the future, if we have to have a declaration, that those numbers that you've got for all of us, you try calling them or whatever, however you think you want to get in contact with us. I'm not here to come with a whip. I'm just here to say, since it's being brought up, that we need to pay more attention to it, to what we're sending out to people. We don't want to confuse the citizens, the people who are constituents. And so that's all I see.
To your point and to Linda's point, it was not supposed to be out until November the 30th. I sent it to you all by email, which is a form of communication. You notice if it was out, it did not bear my signature. It did not bear the city letterhead. It did not bear the city seal. So that was information for you all. Somehow it got misconstrued to go out before we can get everything down on it. So it wasn't no confusion, because when the state of emergency was written, I talked to Apollo and I talked to the city manager. And we went over it to make certain that we went line by line to make certain that it wouldn't be confusing to anyone.
Well, it wasn't very successful, because I will say this, I got it from a citizen before I got it from you, that came from the city website. So it was Ferguson Pulse, and it came from there, and it was everything on there. So I received it from citizen before I opened your email, before I received the email. So I don't know how that happened, but it did.
I got it from somebody who called me, and I said I didn't know nothing about it because I didn't. So I don't know how that happened, but I didn't get it. Like you said you did it.
And I still have issue with the way it's worded. I have, like I said, Mayor, I will work with you 100%, especially in a state of an emergency. I mean, you call me, you say 911, call me back immediately, we got to talk. it's done. But I take offense to the way this is worded in the first two paragraphs.
It was emailed to everyone, and the signed order was not on the website when it was supposed to be there.
It was emailed to us with the verbiage that it currently has, which assumes that you reached out to us before you created the email and could not reach us, which is not the case. And I'm saying to you, if that had been the case, you would never have needed that wording in your emergency order, because you would have had my support as well as the others.
And I don't know if somebody would look to see if your signature was there or not, because when you get something on email, a lot of times that there's no signature, but that email is a legal document, whether your signature there is not. If it came off of your IP address, it is legal document. So how many signatures? I don't know. I can't tell you how many hundreds of emails I get with no signature, but those emails are legal documents. So I mean, I didn't look for your signature. If I get an email from you, I'm going to look that you sent it. That's as simple as that, and that's in most cases. So I don't want to dick around about the signature wasn't there, the signature was there. I'm just saying, if we're going to work together, we're going to have to be together. If we're going to serve the people of this city, we're going to have to work together. And that's going to take us sitting down, because if we're going to go ahead and pick this thing apart one by one, we're just saying that it was confusing. And it's hard to confuse me. I was confused.
Don't see the confusion. So.
Well, I request that a rework be done. And if you would like to do it between you and Jeffrey and Apollo, that's fine. But I would like to see a rework done on this emergency order, taking these considerations into your consideration. And I'm not asking you to end your emergency order by any sense, because there is an emergency out there, but I'm asking you to eliminate the confusion from it. And I appreciate your time. So are you willing to do that, Mayor?
I don't see any confusion in it.
I understand that.
Councilwoman.
Well, and I understand you don't see the confusion, but if you hear that we see confusion in it and we want to work together, are you willing to work with us on that and redesign it so that it still holds the meat of what you need it to hold, but rewords it appropriately? Are you willing to work with us on that?
What is it that needs to be reworked?
I've already gone through it, but I'll be happy to go line by line with you in a,
Could you do that offline at another time?
Sure.
Yeah, it needs to, but I went line by line with the attorney, and you were saying what the attorney and I came up with is not correct. It's confusion. Is that not what you're saying?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And I'm asking that we take the confusion out of this by going through the points that are confusing and clarify them better.
So the first one, Linda and Mayor Jones, it would be in regards to the council, the part about the council, and the mayor could just put by the power vested in her.
So Fran, just in my opinion, it's the second paragraph, it's also number 9, and it's also number 10. And those are my opinion. That's mine out there. I don't know if Councilwoman Burrow has any other lines that she would like to refer to, but those are the ones I'm referring to.
You can't violate people's civil rights from campaigning. In addition to that, December the 15th is the day of the filing for municipal race. And so to try to stop people from getting the names that they need is a violation of what we said they needed to do in the charter. And
no,
people have enough sense when they knock on the door. The person who's behind the door will determine whether or not they're going to open the door.
So, Mayor, I hear you. I will correct you. Candidate filing opens at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, December 15th, and closes on January 19th at 5 p.m. I will also let you know that I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying I think it should be all or nothing. You're either going to let all people continue to knock on the door, maintain social distancing, and allow the people behind the door to make their own choice as to whether or not they open the door, or you say no one is allowed to knock on the door because of a state of emergency.
Linda, like you said,
It's
we want to work together. We need to just take it offline right now and talk about it a little later. Would that work for you?
I was just simply answering your comments. So whatever you works. I just want a commitment from you at this moment that you are willing to work with us and possibly reword this to clarify the confusion.
The commitment I'm gonna make to you right now that we'll take it offline and discuss it.
That's not the commitment I'm asking for. Are you willing to work with us and possibly reword it to maintain?
Wait. Not everybody
Byron,
has a problem with this. Now everybody got a problem with this. It's going too long. This is too long with this nonsense.
You're not my father, and I'm still talking to
I
my
know
man.
I'm not. This is too much. People got things to do.
Thank you,
Mayor.
I said, Byron, I said 10 minutes ago.
Like.
Byron, 10 minutes ago, I said, take this offline. I said it 10 minutes ago.
And now
10
we'll
minutes ago.
take it offline. We will take it offline. And
Thank you,
discuss
Mayor
it.
Jones. Thank you.
Okay. As far as the Ferguson time information, that needs to be discussed by the council also. Once Ferguson time has dissolved, we cannot take that budgetary item and transfer it over to someone else. We can't do that. So that has to be discussed also.
Correct.
Okay. Any unfinished business? Miscellaneous, due to the time that we have and we going into another closed session. Just hopefully that you can hold your comments and
Actually, I can't hold my comment. I'm going to say this real quickly. I do want to take a moment to thank Helen Moody for everything that she gave this community in her lifetime. She has passed away. She was a huge piece of the fiber of our beautiful colors and tapestry of Ferguson. And I hope she rests in peace. I would also like to say a huge thank you to Kelly and Martin Braun for everything that they've donated to the community through their service and their ownership of Marley's, which unfortunately is now closed. And sadly, it's one of many restaurants that have closed, but I wanted to take this opportunity to thank them as well for their support throughout many years being in this community and supporting every single thing that came up, from Twilight Run to protests to everything. They've been a huge support to this community. Well, I saw your face, Fran. What I mean is they supported people who were out there making their voices heard. So, and they supported our officers and our firefighters, and they've supported Taste in Ferguson and many, many things. So lots of things that they have been part of. And so we're gonna miss all of our business owners that have gone under during COVID.
And happy holidays, everyone. This is gonna be the last time that we get to see everybody before.
No, you got December the 15th.
Yeah. Well, I meant the public, having an opportunity. So.
Okay. I just want to say we've been getting a lot of telephone calls from the residents in Ward 3 about the street closure in Jennings. We are working on that. Believe me, we're working on that. As far as the houses being demoed, Matt Unrein was responsible for that. When he knew that he was leaving, he started reaching out to everyone, trying to get them in contact with the county. So
go ahead, but
it is true.
No,
it is true. It is true. So on that note, it is true. One person singly didn't do it all. It was a lot of people working together to get it done. And it's still in the hands of our finance director. So I would like to entertain, we're going to close session. I would like to entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Mayor Jones, I'm going to ask of Octavia, what are we going to change our site?
Zoom number.
Yeah, we got to change site. We have to.
Okay, so are we going to get that coming up right now? I'm talking
Yeah, we're
to.
going back to the Zoom site that we had at the last closed session.
Okay, which one? The second one, Octavia, or the first?
That's the
Second one.
It's the second one.
I take your motion to close the session, then, Mayor.
Okay, is
Seconded.
there a second?
Seconded.
Okay, it has been properly moved and second to go into closed session pursuant 610.021.3 to discuss personnel matter. Clerk Pittman, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Jones,
Aye.
Councilwoman Lipka,
Aye.
Councilman Garrett,
Aye.
Councilman Fry,
Aye.
Councilwoman Griffin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Burrow,
Aye.
and Councilwoman Robinette.
Aye.
We are now in closed session. Everyone have a great night.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holiday, guys.
Happy holidays.